Good morning. This morning I just want us to think a little bit about a few verses from John chapter 10. Earlier on Sunday I was watching Countryfile, and down on Adam's farm they were talking about the difficulties of shearing the sheep through lockdown, because not being able to get in professional shearers and they were having to do it all themselves. And during that period, as he was reporting, he was letting out the sheep out of the shearing pens back into the fields, and there's about 300 sheep. And Adam explained very well how the sheep would run through the gate, and the lambs were there, and there'd be about 300 in the flock, and there'd be a real noise of bleating sheep, lambs calling for their mothers, and the mothers calling for their lambs. And he said how remarkable it was that the little lambs and the sheep, even in such a large flock, would very quickly find their mothers, and they would do that by hearing their mother's voice. And they would run up to their mother, and their mother would look different because she'd been shorn, but through speaking to her, and it wasn't long before they recognised each other. And as they got closer, obviously the other senses kicked in, and they could recognise each other. But most importantly, it was recognising each other's voice. And even in such a large flock of sheep, they could still find their mothers and their lambs. And I thought, what a wonderful picture that is. And in John chapter 10 we read about a few verses, and it talks about the Good Shepherd. And it says, "Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him, because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him, because they do not recognize a stranger's voice." My challenge to you today: do you recognize God's voice in your life? And that picture of Jesus being the Good Shepherd, and us being the sheep, and recognizing his voice. And God can speak to us in so many different ways, whether it's through the Bible, whether it's through other people, whether it's through a picture or through nature. There's lots of ways God wants to speak to us. And it's very important through the noise of everything that's going on around us, is that we learn to hear his voice. My challenge to you today is, in the midst of that clamour, can you recognise God's still small voice speaking to you? Because he wants to guide you. And when we've heard his voice, we can follow him, because we know that he's our good shepherd, and he wants to lead us into good pasture and into a place of abundant life. Hope you have a great day, and pray that you would hear God's voice today.